Hey everyone, and welcome to the next edition of the Snapchat. I'm joined today by none other than Cozy Snap. Cozy, it's been a fun week in Marvel Snap. We've got a new card in Ajax. We've got a ton of Arishem gameplay. We got a lot of discussions that I think are going to be really interesting on this Snapchat episode here. But how are you doing today, buddy?
Good. Speaking of interesting, you won. If you watch my side or listened to it, or you're just listening now. You won a brand new car. You won a Sienna. And I want to know what you're gonna do with this new car and why. Why did you pick that?
Yeah, so basically, Cozy had me on the higher or lower on his side of the Snapchat there, and he asked me when I won my car that he then said didn't exist. It was the Toyota Sienna I picked, and here's a funny story, buddy. So my wife and I, we have 4 kids, and we recently went up north. We went to a little cottage up north, and we piled all the kids into the car. And my daughter sits like in this pop-up seat in the trunk, right? And like we piled all our stuff in, and it was like crazy. Like we had stuff on our laps, and because I had to put like a luggage behind like my seat, I had to like get scrunched up while driving, right? Not enough room. My wife's like, we need to buy a minivan. It has to happen. We need to buy a minivan. I'm so cheap. I'm like, no, we're not buying another car. Like, this is ridiculous. She's like, no, we got to buy a minivan. So I'm like, okay, fine. We go car shopping, right? We're doing it like we've been looking around a little bit, but this weekend we got serious. We went to Honda. We checked out the Odyssey, right? My wife's like, yeah, it's good. It's fine. We went to Toyota, right? We got all the kids with us, right? We got all the kids with us. We go to Toyota, and the gentleman is like trying to show us the Toyota Sienna. And like the Sienna's like their minivan. And I'm just, do you know what, like you kind of just, like, do you know like when like in the Doctor Strange movie, when the lady who's training Doctor Strange, like the Grandmaster, whatever she's called, she punches him in the chest and he leaves his body and enters the spirit realm. You know what I'm talking about?
I do. I'm so curious how you're gonna tie that into this story. Yes, I'm aware.
Okay, so I had this moment where like that was me. I lifted out of my body and I was in the spirit realm, and like I'm listening to this guy try to explain why reclining and shiftable seats in this minivan are so important. While my wife's listening, and I look over, and the baby is like our 1.5-year-old is like repeatedly punching the like automatic door opener on the door. And it's like opening, and like my other 2, like my daughter and my son, they are like inside the car just going crazy. So they're making noise. I can't even hear. And then my 3-year-old, who's being potty trained, right? He's doing his best to be potty trained. I look over to him, and he's shitting his pants. He's just he's in the dealership. He's standing there, and I can see in his face, like I can see that he's grunting one out. And my wife looks at me. She looks at him. She's like, she goes over. She's like, excuse me. She goes over. She looks at me. She's like, she shit his pants. And then the guy comes in, and he's like, sir, can I talk to you for a second? Because he's doing the evaluation on my used car. So I walk outside. We're looking at my Kia Sorento. He's got his notepad, and he's like, I don't think these numbers scratched in the side of the car are going to buff out. And he's taking notes. I'm like, okay, so now my kids destroyed my trade-in. They crapped their pants in the showroom.
Did a little poop come out?
No, he's wearing very tight whiteys, like tighty whiteys,
okay.
Very tight. He likes them tight. And so they were able to contain. But there's some things that can't be contained, like, the aroma.
I can see the guy like kicking your tires. He's like, the treads on these aren't too bad. And Alex is like trying to like quickly like shovel the poop from the first seat of the van. He's like, dude, that's it. That kid, I am scared. I was gonna say scared pissless. That kind of works of potty training. I've heard a lot of stories. I've had my brother's kid just peed in the middle of the store, and it's like, how do you tell the store owner, I'm sorry that my kid peed on your floor? Like, it's just, you get yourself in some fun conversations. I can't imagine with 4 how many you have to go through.
Yeah, man, it's difficult, but you know what, buddy? I believe in you. I think you'll be able to potty train yourself. I think you'll be okay.
Well,
we'll figure it out.
One would call that poop toxic, and you know what else is toxic, Alex?
Ajax?
Ajax's
win rate's definitely toxic right now.
48%,
sure. Cozy. 48% win rate, a negative cube rate of 0.06. 12% of the meta. People tried them. It's the weekend missions right now. People are trying to play Ajax. Probably the best way to play Ajax is play a good Arishem deck and put Ajax in it and don't play them. But that's a whole other conversation. Now, we came in pretty hopeful, and I was particularly hopeful, honestly. We came in at 3.5. Do you think he met expectations?
But what did we say? We did say this first week was going to be a nightmare. So, like, we checked. Like, I It's so funny when like we call that out and then we're like surprised that he's back. Like, yeah. Also, he's a toxic card. Win rate, especially on these, I'm always a little bit hesitant for because I'm like, yeah, you're literally playing with fire, as I always like to say. And Cassandra Nova, right? Could help out. Put this all together, and he's still pretty dumpster. I think, yeah, it reminds me, and we did compare this, kind of just like the Ronin to the Devil Dinosaur. Like Ronin, you're having to do these things to make it work, and even then, the end result, it's a 5, and it's it's kind of tough to pull off. Definitely not 3.5. Yeah, I think he's more in the lines of 2.5, and I'm interested on how Cassandra, as just a powerhouse card in there, kind of feeds into Ajax's later play because you have 2 vertical lanes and then you have multiple toxic stuff happening. But yeah, definitely underwhelming.
Yeah, no, it's definitely been underwhelming, and you got to work really hard to get the effect to work. Like I was doing like Typhoid Mary stuff and then Ajax into Mystique, and like you're debuffing your whole side just to give Ajax additional power. But the challenge is it's like this trade-off of like he's only getting +1. And I almost wonder if he was like lower, if he was like a 5-1, but he gained +2 per card on your side or on their side. I wonder if that +2 would make a better like impact because like you're trading that negative for more of a positive. However, he just felt really awkward. Although, and I will say, we talked about like, oh yeah, obviously Luke Cage is problematic against Ajax. He completely shuts him down. I didn't even play against that much Luke Cage. Like honestly, like I did not see much Luke Cage, but my Ajax plays were like underwhelming, just very difficult, wonky. It just didn't feel as good as I was hoping.
Well, because you can't guarantee you're going to get him too. Like, I think Luke Cage also being in these Ajax decks were important because you had to have a backup. Like, you're doing Typhoid Marys. You have to have a backup plan, and that was what's so tough. The identity is a bit mixed on what you want to do with it. I do think people got carried away with trying to get insanely big Ajax. I think you can get respectable numbers just doing the opponent's side. I will say that, and I want to see that develop. But yes, people definitely didn't play a lot of Luke Cages. Like, you didn't have to worry about that a lot. And like Annihilus was that puzzle piece for Junk. He is not that puzzle piece yet for a very hyper-competitive toxic deck. I still think he's marginally fine, right? But he's not transcendent by any stretch of the imagination.
Would you be against him being changed to be basically like a toxic version of Gilgamesh? Like if Gilgamesh can be a 5/9 that gets +1 for everything positive on your side, can Ajax be a 5/9 that gets +1 for every negative on their side?
4/4 ongoing or that side? Oh, okay. Yeah.
Like literally the inverted Gilgamesh, straight up.
Yeah. I think that's fine. And I still think then, just like Devil would be play more than Ronin, he's still not crazy. So yeah, I think that's definitely fine because you're averaging then a much, much higher threshold. Problem is, and it's a big one. You ready for this? Gilgamesh was a season pass card, so they could sell it. So I don't think it, you know what I mean? Like he got much faster treatment. So that's where I don't see that happening. Yeah,
but then again, Hydra Bob got buffed really fast. So maybe Ajax gets buffed as well. Because they clearly want anybody that pulls these cards to feel like they got a winner. You don't want to feel like I got Ajax, great, I'm never playing this garbage. Yeah. They want you to be like actually excited to get Ajax. And in their defense, we came in pretty decent. And I actually liked this card going into the season. It's very possible that like with this being a kind of archetype defining card, not even archetype defining, but it's a major core component to that archetype. It's probably hard for the development team and their testers to really get an idea of like the gamut of releasing this card to the greater population. It feels like it had higher potential than it delivered on. You know what I mean? Like it felt like this card's got to be good, right? Like there's got to be, someone's got to figure out the deck that sends this to like 19 power consistently or whatever it is.
We're in a bad week, but you also, like we said this last week, and it's a bad example, but if there's a Cosmo for the whole board, right? Which is actually interesting concept. On reveal both sides, right? So your side and their side. But anyway, if that existed, you know how many on reveal cards would be like, oh man, but like all they have to do is insert that, you know? That's a problem. The Luke Cage counter is just so much. It's just so heavy. It's just extremely heavy at that. Because even with Cassandra Nova, and we don't know how stealing's going to work. I don't know, but at least it's going to tame their side, not your side or whatever. But the reason I like Cassandra Nova, I've seen people say it's not going to be a big difference to him. I disagree. I think that if she can truly carry the weight vertically, you have an early play at that, and then you can work with him a bit more and a bit more flexibility there in the way that he works. I also wish that we had some type of a toxic card, I guess. Maybe this is wishing for too much. That's a 1 cost that isn't Celine. That like him at 4 cost was so cool because you had that potential hazmat and Ajax play. even then though, there's just too little of play. I do think it's interesting that Hazmat and Ajax, they're the only two you kind of need to make his thing work. But yeah, 5'9" would be sick with just Hazmat and Dex.
Yeah, and I mean, they did buff Viper. So in theory, Ajax and Viper could see some tandem play together to improve that junk archetype. Like, you might see like Debris into Viper, into Ajax, and then like a Hazmat Wong combination, right? But in my experimentation, he just felt somewhat underwhelming. And in my opinion, Gilgamesh is just simply better. Like, not even close. It's not even close to how competitive they are.
But Gilgamesh had a very similar feeling to Ajax that first week. Like, he did, like, why? He just doesn't do enough, doesn't have the pop-off. And then 5'9", it's like, okay, he's respectable. It's not, like, super meta, but he's respectable now, you know? But the problem is Gilgamesh just synergizes with better cards, I think, at the end of the day, as does something like Devil Dinosaur. It's kind of the same thing. That's why I just keep going back to the Ronin and Devil.
It felt like when I was trying to play and brew Ajax, I felt like I was walking on like hot coals. You know that old saying, like you're walking on coals? Like, it's like you're trying to get the power out, but you have to work so hard for it because like you're debuffing yourself, you're playing Cager, you're not playing Luke Cage, you're doing all this type of stuff. It's like I could have just slammed down Blob. You know what I mean? And like,
yeah, right, 100%. You are working very hard for a smaller result, and on top of that, it's like you get Hazmat, and you're like, that's your only play on turn 2. You're not gonna play her. So you're just like, okay, what do I do? So it'd be interesting, like if Hazmat was an ongoing card, -1 across the whole board, it would be a big nerf to your side. But the way that she works out, and then you can play her earlier, I don't know. I'm just spitballing here. But yeah, there's a lot of awkward mechanics and puzzle pieces to make him as a whole package awkward.
And one thing I kind of want to bring to your attention as well is like he is not performing well in Evo at all. And it brought a question to my mind, and I'd like your kind of input on it. Is Ajax, I feel like should have been a good card in Evo. And the fact that it's not, is that indicative of Evo slipping a little bit and needing more love? Or is that kind of a showcase in Ajax not being good enough?
Both. I think Evo definitely suffers. I mean, there's the big red guy we could talk about alone, who's just like the Luke Cage to Evo, and his popularity is through the roof. So you've got that. But yeah, definitely Evo's hurting. And I think they've already said they still have more ideas down the line for Evo, like they're working on that. And when they say that, it takes forever. And on top of that, they never confirm what that was. Like, you know, like they never say, this was what we were talking about, you know, 4 posts back. But yeah, I think it's indicative of both.
It's kind of funny because you said like Red Hulk is the Luke Cage to Evo. It's like also Luke Cage is the Luke Cage to Evo as well. Let's not forget. It also takes a steaming dump on the card. At the end of the day, for me, I think Ajax is a pass. If you pulled him going for, you know, the other goodies like the Dark Hawks and stuff like that, then like I think it's probably fine. I think the second inner seems to be kind of dedicated to making sure that every new card is at least somewhat playable. It wouldn't surprise me if a month down the road, there is a toxic deck with the new Viper that runs Ajax that's solid. That's the one thing. And I feel the people out there that are like, Alex, you're telling us not to get it, and then it's going to get buffed, and it's going to be in the top meta deck, and screw you, man. It's like, I get it. There's some like FOMO frustration there, but like other than that, like right now, as of recording, Ajax is a skip.
And you can't just do that with every card, right? So like Cassandra Nova, like, could she have a deck that's best? Like her best potential is with Ajax and Cassandra, yes, but she's also just a damn good card, and she's gonna be fine without. She's gonna be fine without him. So you know, either way you look at it, I think you're gonna be okay passing on him. But also, if he's a 5'9" and Cassandra comes out, good God, he could be really good. So we'll see how that goes.
And our next topic of discussion is the villains of Marvel Snap. Now, Cozy and I, we like to discuss this every once in a while, and what prompted this discussion was a very interesting little situation on Reddit where, quite frankly, I was laughing in real life because we had 2 posts back to back. Arishem isn't broken, one subject line said, and the subject immediately underneath is, I can't believe Second Inner's devs think that Arishem is fine. The duality of man, Cozy, the duality of man. People are saying Arishem's not broken. Other people are saying they're going to quit the game because Arishem's tilting them out. Is Arishem a problem?
First of all, you brave soul going to Reddit. It is a special group. Man, players are gonna quit the game. Man, I'm shocked. Yeah, I trust the devs here, obviously, and I don't call me a shill here. It's like they've got the data that we don't have, and so if they don't think he's a problem statistically he's not. But then you go back to the problem of, right? Maybe I'm jumping the gun here, but maybe you go back to the problem of like, is it a feel problem, right? which to me, it's on the line, but I would say no. Like Galactus, Alioth, those directly felt really bad, right? Because of the things that they did to prohibit you playing the game. Whereas Arishem, I just don't think that's the case there. Are you in agreement? What do you think?
No, I agree 100%. Like Arishem, I don't think is, for me personally, is not nearly as tilting as like Release Goliath was. Not nearly as tilting as like the Wolverine Wave Galactus era where he was absolutely just crushing everything. But that, to the same degree, we joked last week about someone sending in a message that was like, yo, sick of getting blobbed 4 times. And like, we kind of laughed about it. And sure enough, you know, I get a Twitter mention like, hey, Alex, it's not 4 blobs, but here's 3. I'm like, oh, how the hell did that happen? Right. And it's like, so I can totally see why the play pattern can be frustrating at times. But like in my experience, like I've actually thoroughly enjoyed playing Arishem. And it feels like the kind of card that like, it's okay to like it feels particularly fair. And I think it has lots of dials to adjust as well.
It goes back to what I said on our side, on my side, man. Just period, full stop. Airship's a super fun card. He's super fun for the game. I think he's just that's it. We get too caught up. They get too caught up with the meta. I think too caught up with this is competitive now. If it's ultimately making the game less fun, then that's a counter, subject to what I just stated. But in this particular one, it's like you'll be fine. It's a fun time. Yeah. It's good. I think it's good for the game.
Yeah, for the launch, he was at like a 70-something% play rate. Currently, as of today recording, he's at a 31. So he's dropping considerably. Remember, Red Hulk was over 30 at his heyday as well. And so like these cards are going to maintain their popularity for a while. And that's fine. I also think the card is really good for weekend missions. Like for the example, like this week is Man-Thing and Ajax. If you don't want to make a Man-Thing Ajax deck and throw cubes away, make an Arishem deck, throw those 2 cards in and just run with it. And then when you get the weekend mission done, take them out, right? I don't think that's the intended feature, but that's the idea there. I just think the card's fun and I'm glad people are having fun again. And if you're a little frustrated, just take a break. Take a little break and let Arishem settle down a bit. And don't worry, we're more than happy to have you come back.
And if they needed to, there are plenty of dials on him to adjust. So if they needed to, there's plenty. They can add more cards to the deck, and they can keep adding more to make your deck that you made less consistent. And ultimately, I kind of think that's fun too. I like the idea of the true random chaos of it. That's where I have fun. Where I'm putting in like the Mockingbirds, it's like okay, but the fun lies of trying to make a shocker into Captain America work kind of thing.
Yeah, man. And like, listen, I absolutely agree. That dial's probably the one they should go to if they decide to reduce the consistency of the tech cards added to the deck. Because yeah, listen, I totally get it. I was like in a match of like Gold Conquest or whatever, and someone literally Shang-Chi'd me and played their blob. And I was like, how'd you get both of them? How did you get both? How do you have everything you need, man? How did that happen, right? And then of course M'Baku comes out and wins. It's like, of course M'Baku is in your deck.
And not to mention, Cassandra will be is kind of built to be a really strong counter to him, like extremely 20 plus power, or 17, 16, 15, whatever. It's going to be kind of nasty.
And honestly, like I actually really like Arishem, and I actually took it to the complete opposite of competitive Arishem. I made a deck called Cope Arishem. Cozy, I put every bad card in the game. I had Uatu, I had M'Baku, I had Rescue, I had Crystal. Every card that people were like, yo, that card sucks. But I'm like, I'm putting it in there. I had Electra in there. And you know what, Cozy? I ran like a 58% win rate live on stream. And it was so much fun. M'Baku coming from the top rope, the whole thing, Cozy. Uatu showing me that right location. Oh, it was just chef's kiss. And to the point I played so much Uatu and M'Baku that when I stopped playing them and I started playing more competitively again, not knowing that third location, I'm like, I'm actually stressed now. I'm actually stressed out not having Uatu in my deck.
I never not double negative, but I never not smile when M'Baku comes flying on the board. Like, I just think it's always, and especially because now with Arishem, it surprises both players sometimes. Like, if he's not in the original build. I think it's just it's a joy.
Yeah, you see him come out twice. Huh, huh. Or I really like when like he does the thing where he's like, no room, and he just pops his head in the corner. That's an underappreciated thing in Marvel Snap, I think.
Yeah.
But there are more villains. Not just Arishem, okay? So Cozy and I think we're on the side of we're kind of happy Arishem's there, but maybe a little dialing here and there with some internal statistics. But there are some cards that I think are super, super pissing me off. And Arishem is it's because of Arishem, okay? Cozy, I have a beef with Dr. Octopus. I don't want to see Dr. Octopus on turn 4 anymore. Like, that's actually pissing me off. And it's kind of Arishem's fault. And this is the thing. So Arishem is allowing people to play turn 4 Doc Octopuses. So people are getting mad because they're like, Arishem's doing this crap. His deck's annoying. but maybe it's the Doc Ock that's annoying. Maybe we need to make some changes here, Cozy. Maybe he needs to go out to the dog pound.
And if I would have thought Doc Ock would be complained about. Remember he was on my number 1 hated card list at one point in time? I forgot when that was, but it was like a long time ago. Because he's definitely that definition of will never be played or he's played. And I do also think, in turn, he's very important to counter combo decks. I think he's like that's what he does well. I don't know what to do with him though. I'll be honest. He's not one that specifically like pisses me off a lot. Like it happens and it's frustrating. But it is a gamble at the end of the day, right? So me personally, right? Like it doesn't. But because of that, I haven't put thought of like what do you do with him.
It's hard, man. I'm not sure either, but let's play a higher or lower. Who's getting more play right now, Cozy? Dr. Octopus or Loki?
I was gonna say higher. Whatever it is higher because that's no question. Higher for sure, for damn sure.
It is higher, buddy. Isn't that crazy though? Like you're talking about Loki was one of the key synergies of Arishem, and Dr. Octopus has a 26% play rate right now. 26%, 1 in 4 games. Doc Ock is saying hello.
If he does prove to be a problem, I think it would be really cool to give him some obscene stats, but then make him 6 cost. So he's the last play of the game, and it's literally the biggest dice roll, right? Because you're playing out big time power. You could play him into a lane that's full, so you have that going for you, right? And then it's just like, well, I hope this does, I hope this will seal the gap or whatever. I think that's a potential solution.
Yeah, but then again, they can still play him on turn 5 and still have a massive play on turn 6.
Well, he's a 5 now. He should have been 5. I think that's fine. I think that's okay.
I mean, Arishem is cheating him out early. That's why people are getting pissed because he's coming on turn 4.
But he could have come out on 4 on Ramtex a long time ago with Electro, right? That's just my point. Like, I get it. It's a hot topic right now, but that... And maybe I'll get flack for this. And it's just maybe personally because I haven't gotten angry with him as a card. But I guess it's like, maybe the conversation is there's being there for like the loud subjects right now, right? But we're not like politicians of Snap. It's more of like, when does this stop, right? Where it's always someone, always something, which is why Villains of Snap is a repeat subject, right? It's a repeat subject for a reason. But it's always something. And is it just popular at the moment? And then do they nuke Doc Ock and then we don't see him ever? Or whatever, I just don't... I guess I would trust their statistics, I guess, because they would know it there. But it's like, when do we draw that line, right? Or, I don't know.
The other thing is I'd like to know the statistics of how often Dr. Octopus Shang-Chi's himself.
Yeah, that's got to be somewhere up there. No, but I want to hear your take on this. Like, when do you draw that line, right? Because, like, you're mad at Doc Ock right now. So, like, when do you stop... Or when do you look at it? Okay, it's just like a hot subject. It's the loudest voices in the room. Now, there's times you have to listen to those voices, the Galactus of old. But sometimes maybe it's just the stature of old maybe could have survived, right? And it didn't have to go through out then in or Captain whatever is my point.
I love what you're asking me because it's a perfect example of I'm pissed off about this thing and I'm voicing that I'm pissed off about this thing. But I also don't know how I would fix it if I was Glenn Jones. Like if I'm on Second Inner's team, I don't know. I don't know what I do to Dr. Octopus to make him feel better. I know that it feels bad to have him being played on turn 4, but I also don't know what the solution is. I also think he's a really cool card and I don't want him out of the game. You know what I mean? Like I think that his effect is neat. The fact that Shang-Chi and like comes out and punches them out like 90% of the time, that's good flavor. I like that. But I don't know. I don't know. It's like, but you ask a good question. Like, I'm sitting here complaining about a card, but I have no reasonable solution to provide. I'm just bitching.
And I get it though, because it is a hot topic, right? And so it's like, if people don't understand, like, if I made a video directly about Dr. Octopus and the whole video is about featuring him, playing and abusing it, and then like showing it, and like this is like that would make me a lot of views and turn money. But like, that's just not who I am that's just not what I like to do. It's just not what I'm in here for, right? So it is, yeah. It's like, what do you do at the end of the day? But I also do think, to your merit very much, and we both agree on that, it is important to bring up what we are seeing kind of populate in the Snap community and come up and have discussions about it at the end of the day. But yeah, personally, Doc Ock, I think I've seen, trust me, by the way, I've seen the hatred. I've seen it on X, Twitter, whatever. But yeah, on this one, I'll let it settle for a little bit. Like Werewolf by Night's a good example where he had to get nerfed because of how he was leaning into junk and the builds, and then like look at him now, like we just said, he's not good. So there's like timeliness of some card combinations that come out that's all we would see, but some is a brief window. And I don't know how long this window has been, I guess.
Yeah, and I think the solution might be, as you mentioned prior, like add 2 extra cards to the Arishem deck. Reduce the opportunity that someone who has Dr. Octopus in their Arishem deck draws it. Because if we're seeing it 26% of the time right now, perhaps if you make it so that instead of drawing 37% of your deck, you draw only 30%, that's going to take down Dr. Octopus, right? Because now it's going to be drawn less often, played less often as a result. And that might be a balancing factor for Arishem, while not hurting other cards like maybe Quinjet or whatever else that aren't as problematic. Okay, Quinjet has very obvious counters, like it's countered by Enchantress, Rogue, Killmonger, etc., right? Dr. Octopus doesn't have that. So, I mean, I think the dial that you talked about before might be actually the most prudent. But we'll move on from Dr. Octopus for now. I know it's frustrating, but at the same time, it's like, I don't know. It's a tough solution. Like, I don't envy Second Dinner's position here, where people are like really vocalizing disdain for a card, and like they have to try to solve it, I guess.
Yeah, it's a tough position to be in because you have like Shuri, who like definitely needed that switch, like the Shuri of old. And there's clear and obvious. Sometimes they're way too clear. Like Red Hulk. What are you guys thinking? How did you release him on release, guys? Alith, again, what are you thinking? Mobius, whatever. But then you have the side of it's like the Hood got changed. Quinjet, remember Quinjet got changed? Like, what? We can't play our 0 cost now, or we can't do for 0 cost or whatever. And so I just don't envy that position. Yeah, that's tough.
Yeah. And another recent card that came out that's been very, we'll say, popular, running over 20% of games is White Widow. And I think the moment that really clicked for me is when I was making a good card style deck. I was brewing, and I'm like, I cut Jeff. And I added White Widow. I think White Widow is the de facto 2-cost card now. Where Jeff used to be, I feel like it's White Widow now. And I'd like to hear your opinion on White Widow.
Yeah, so contrary to Dr. Octopus, like what I will stand behind, if the statistics show it, is when there's just one card in a cost that is just objectively the one you have to have in the deck. And then in turn, it makes like 30 plus, 20 plus, whatever cards more relevant or even worse or whatever. Because when you have something universal like White Widow, right, super universal, I do agree there. That's kind of like why Angela's gone up and down so many times, right? Because it's like, well, why not just play Angela or whatever it was at the time? Now, it's funny how some survive, like Jeff, like he just survived the whole time. And guess what? He was the card to include. He was that card to include for a very long time. So much so, I thought Mockingbird would have lasted longer just because Jeff did. But because Jeff's play rate had been through the roof as well. So I don't know why he's the one-off, right? But I do agree. If a card just like takes over that 2 slot or whatever, then for sure, I would agree there.
Now, I kind of put you in an interesting position here because White Widow is a card that I think people are getting a little frustrated with, like similar to Dr. Octopus. However, it's only running post-infinite current statistics I just pulled. It's running a 49.8% win rate, which I don't think people would realize that its win rate is actually as low as it is. The Arishem packages are running in the mid-50s on aggregate. This is clear 5% lower. And yet, I think people would consider White Widow and Dr. Octopus being in a similar category. But statistically, they're not even close. So it goes to show how that feel of playing against cards matters. Because they can tilt you out despite their overall aggregate performance not actually being objectively bad.
Yeah, we saw that with Galactus so many times. That was their excuse for like the first year on Galactus was like, I think it was December to like June or something that we didn't see that change. And it was like, well, his win rate's low. And it's like, again, that's not always the thing. And Doc Ock could very well fit that mold. And that could be comments that we see down below. Like, well, he's making the game a worse experience. I guess like that window is what I was talking about is how long are we going to let that, is it just flavor of the week, the month, whatever. But yes, if it's objectively causing that, then it does need attention.
No, there's no question about it. It's like that feel bad play, which I think like Alith was very, very much that feel bad play, right? Here's an interesting fact. The fifth most popular card in Marvel Snap right now. No one's complaining about. I mean, I hear you talk about it. It's Agent Coulson, 26%. 26% of the meta, a 54.5% win rate, one of the best cards in Marvel Snap right now, but ain't nobody complaining about Agent Coulson. No one's out there talking about how Agent Coulson's a friggin' problem. Is Agent Coulson a villain now? He has a higher win rate than Dr. Octopus. He has a higher win rate than Blob, by the way, by several percentage points. He has a higher win rate than Shang-Chi. He has a higher win rate than Arishem himself on aggregate statistics. One of the best cards in Marvel Snap right now is Agent Coulson.
The day they nerf Agent Coulson is the day I quit Marvel Snap. It's a game I don't want to be a part of anymore. I will make a 30-minute video just on that front, my friend. I can't, I won't. Even 3-3 second dinner. Don't do it.
It seems like that's legit. Don't do it. I need we need Cozy for the Snapchat. Don't nerf Coulson and kill the Snapchat second dinner. It just ain't right.
Yeah, I mean, he's so good because there's a lot of 4s and 5s that are really good. And then, of course, he plays into the decks that are really good right now. And then, guess what? When those decks don't exist, he's gone. You know, like, he just kind of, like, makes his exit, which is what I love, man. Get my favorite card in and out. He's just kind of sliding under the radar a little bit. We saw what happened to Arrow. She flew too far above the cuckoo nest, and now she's the least played card in the game.
Flew too close to the sun, just like the eternal Icarus. Actually flew into the sun, but that's a whole other conversation. Agent Coulson, though, the reason why I bring this up is because it's, again, going back to that feeling. No one's feeling anything about Agent Coulson, but he's absolutely performing. And it reminds me of Sauron months and months ago. Sauron being the top card in the game that no one ever complained about, right? Cozy, do you think they did enough to Blob?
He's a tough one to mess with, right? Like, isn't he a tough card to just, like, what do you do? I feel like the only way to adjust it from here on out would be to do set limits on him, like a set limit of maximum power. And I also, like, I just kind of hate the randomness to him a bit. I could get why he's there or whatever. Time will tell. I think time will tell on this one. I think it's funny that he's now he got nerfed and buffed kind of in the same patch with a couple of reasons.
Yeah, I know. And there's one other card I want to just mention as we move on to the.
What are your thoughts on Blob? Wait, I want to hear your thoughts on Blob. You pass the ball this way. I'm passing. What are your thoughts on Blob? You're neutral. You like to be right here. I want to hear it. Which one? Blob, hit me.
I find Blob to be frustrating because you can't predict or measure Blob. You don't know where he's going to go. They can high roll into the high 20s, even 30s if I haven't seen a 30 Blob in a while. But like I often see like, oh, what did he hit? Oh, he hit Scarf, a 3-drop, and then all of a sudden he hit like, a Giganto and just pumped all the way up or whatever, right? You see those big scars. However, he's so vulnerable to Shang-Chi. He's very vulnerable to Shadow King. Like, he has answers. It kind of bothers me that he is so counterplay capable for, like, Darkhawk. You play Darkhawk to counter Arishem, and then the Blobs and the Absorber Mans kill your Darkhawks.
Read this text on Pixie right here at the bottom. What does that say?
On reveal, shuffle the base costs of all cards in your deck that started there.
Blob, merge with all the cards that started in your deck. Is that a fix?
Ooh, wait a minute. That's interesting.
Just give him Pixie.
That's interesting. So then it keeps Arishem vulnerable to the Darkhawk package. But he is already vulnerable to Dark. I like that change. That's kind of interesting. But the problem is now he's going to be really good in Thanos because the Thanos stones make it so he's always close to that 15 max.
But Thanos could use it. Like, I mean, I think like Thanos
True.
right now is out and Blob's not like a massive problem in there necessarily. I don't know. I think that could be, the tech exists. Like, we're literally reading it right here with Pixie. So just like, boop. Make that happen with Blob, and that could make the whole Arishem thing feel better, as a whole.
Yeah, we just spoke about Blob in the Mystique interaction, and a lot of the comments were like, "That's intended, guys. It's not a bug. It's intended. It's supposed to be that way." And they're like, "Yo, we're getting rid of that shit, right?" And like, that's fine. Like, I agree. We agreed with it last week. Something had to be done. They did it, and that's good. And the last one I just want to bring up, Cozy, 14% popularity, Leech. It's not to Doc Ock's standard yet. Doc Ock's in the mid-20s, but Leech at 14% is high for a card that says anger-inducing.
Leech will always suck. It will always suck. Yeah, I mean, like, dude, especially like Copycat Leech, bro. You like kill their bottom card, then you kill the cards in their hand, and you're just like, what are you gonna do? Yeah, man. Leech is one of those cards I don't even like saying his name, because the problem is the more we say his name, the more we give people ideas. Like, go look at my videos. I don't have Leech nearly in any deck. The last time I featured Leech, in fact, the only time I probably did, was Blink. Before he wasn't getting played a lot, and I had him in Blink before that whole thing happened. Before they adjusted Leech. Why did they do that? But before they did that. But yeah, Leech is just one of those feel bad cards for sure.
Yeah, when I was a kid in elementary school, I remember watching like the original X-Men animated series, and then kids would go into the bathroom at school, turn off the lights, and say Leech into the mirror 5 times, and then would see ghosts and freak out. But let's take us to the Snapchat mailbag codes. We got a couple questions from the community here, and they're about Marvel Snap sometimes. But what we really like here is we talked last week about some cards that really needed some love from Second Dinner, and we got some really cool ideas back from the community. Like CJ, who said, here's an ideal for your Angel and for White Queen. Angel, when one of your cards is destroyed, this flies out of your hand or deck to replace it. And if that card is destroyed, so if Angel's then destroyed, it becomes Archangel with +3 power. Also, White Queen, on reveal, copy the highest cost card in your opponent's deck into your hand, or in your opponent's hand to your hand, and that card cannot be destroyed. So basically, White Queen copies the card and also adds the cannot be destroyed text to the whatever the most expensive card in their hand was, which is cool because that's like flavor relevant. Remember, she goes diamond in the X-Men series. And Angel can be destroyed to make Archangel. What are your thoughts on those ideas?
Hats off. Whoever you are, man. You got my, what is his name, Jay? CJ, man. Hats off to you. That's a really good idea. This is the stuff I like talking about. This is the stuff, I was at Comic-Con, you came up, like, hit me with it. I love this stuff, especially to make things more lore, like, inspired in the game. I'm all for it. I love that, man. Those are some good suggestions, especially the Archangel. Like, I like the idea of like a Bucky Barnes effect in there. I think it may need to be more rewarding to destroy him twice. Could be tough to pull that off all the time. But I guess not. I guess you just play him regularly on curve. So yeah, I actually don't hate that. That's a cool idea. Very good idea.
It's a cool idea, but I wonder if it's like Chavez for destroy. Like, do you know how good that is? Like, that's so good. You're thinning the deck.
It is, and it's certainly better. God, you might as well test it out with some stat increase because it's certainly. He's going to get played more than he does now, unless he's there for the new player experience, Alex.
I hate when you bring up the new player experience like that, because it's like, it is like, so literally, stupid. It's like they're like, hey, I got a new idea for something, and they're like, oh yeah, boom, your knees. It's like do you know how like mobsters take out people's knees? It's like card design in Marvel Snap, it gets taken out by the new player experience.
It's the ultimate trump card too. It's like there's just nothing you can say to you, like, oh yeah, the new player experience, But then they don't always follow it because there's cards that have been buffed like tremendously or nerfed like a Chavez.
Yeah, another idea I saw for White Queen, by the way, which I thought was cool, is copy the highest cost card of your opponent's your hand into your hand at -1 cost. So theoretically, you can play her on turn 4, get their blob, play blob on turn 5. Which I thought was kind of interesting.
Yep, I like it.
Pretty interesting thing too. Critical Slap came at us with this statement, which I thought was awesome. How about changing Rhino to Rhino can be played anywhere and ruin the location, just like Jeff, but he can't move. So let's say you have a Sanctorum. You can actually play Rhino into the Sanctorum, so he can get in there and he destroys the location.
I like it. That's a solid one, and you definitely are a fan of Moist Critical. I can tell from the Critical Slap. But yes, I do enjoy. What big YouTubers do you watch, Alex? I know we're running.
It's so funny you bring up Moist Critical because, like, hey, we're very analytical. Like, you guys wouldn't know this, but behind the scenes, Coccia and I, like, we're pros, man. Like, we know the analytics. We know how to, like, how YouTube's best practices work. Moist Critical breaks all the rules. His thumbnails are just like the automated generated one. He doesn't even capitalize his titles. The titles don't even make sense half the time. They're spelling mistakes. I'm like, what? And they'll have like 4 million views. I'm like, what is happening here? What am I doing wrong?
Yeah, dude, no, there's people like that in every like genre, and I love that. Like, he defies like there's for those that played old school RuneScape, there's a guy named Bodhi I like a lot, and he his titles are ridiculous, man. They're like anti-algorithm almost, like, because they're so just like gibberish. But the content's so good, people come, right? So that, or the personality or whatever. And so yeah, dude, I love me some Moist Critical, for sure. And I definitely got started, I think, on his stuff with the Critical Slap stuff, or hit the slap contest. But anyway, yes, very good, very good. What do we got for our next mailbag?
Our next mailbag question comes from Shep Boy, and it reads: the old Spotlight variants are now appearing in the shop for 2,400 gold. What are your guys' thoughts on this?
I knew this was gonna come. Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm confused too. This was one of those questions. I'm like, I don't know, man. First of all, I thought they were going to be 1,200, but it doesn't surprise me that they're 2,400. But also, most of the Spotlight variants are garbage, and you shouldn't be spending 2,400 gold on them anyways. I don't know, man. I'm not surprised. It's like they tried to increase the value of the Spotlight keys in some way. You know what I mean?
Yeah, the thing that I don't like that they're 2,800, but what I also don't like is that they return. And I think that's such a hot take. I think that they're like, I think the best skins, the best stuff in these games are ones that come by. And like, yeah, it creates more FOMO. Totally get that. It's unfair, whatever, but they're not even that great anymore, right? Like, so we can agree on that. But I think like
Yeah.
if a skin comes to the game, you get the you get the skin. Like I was talking to this guy named Sir Tag who plays Clash Royale, and there's a game mode where if you play it, you get a like kind of like the Cassandra variant, right? Coming up. That variant should never come back. It shouldn't. I don't think it should. Because it's a variant, it's cosmetic, and it's rewarding somebody for playing the game. Maybe that's the old gamer in me, right? Like the old school gamer in me. Times have changed. But do you see my point there a little bit? I don't know.
Yeah, no, I absolutely agree. Like I love card backs that like I know people weren't collecting, and like I'm kind of showing off. Like I was playing the Mjolnir one from the Thor Mjolnir one, right? Like over with Lockjaw, and like I know people were seeing that, but like that exists. Like I don't think I've ever seen that before. I'm like, hell yeah, it exists, gamer. I've been playing this game for a damn long time. I like that collection side, and we've talked about it a ton. That I think a lot of the allure of Marvel Snap is those collection components, right? Like I think the collecting is part of the game.
I think you could add them to character mastery, and that's interesting too. Like if you really like Deadpool and there's a Deadpool spotlight, well, that wouldn't happen, but you know what I mean. That you didn't get, and you're just like, that's one way to get it, I guess. But I just don't. I don't agree with the 2,800 gold thing. But in turn, I also just think they don't need to come out again. But I don't know.
I think honestly, here's a piece of advice. I was suffering with FOMO for a long time. I was buying every single bundle. I let the first bundle go, the second bundle go, the third. All of a sudden, I'm like, wait, it doesn't matter, man. Doesn't matter. Listen, buddy. I let bundles go like crazy. I've really reduced my kind of like excess spending, and I feel great about it, man. I let spotlight variants go. I let the Ajax one go. He's poo anyway. But the only one I regret is that really nice Nico one, the first Nico one.
There's
the fantasy one.
Yeah, that one's so good. I would say this. Yeah, first of all, like nobody cares what variants you have and what you don't have, guys. Like get one if you like it or whatever. But what I'll say too is like, yeah, there's a common misconception. I got the black borders because I'm a mad black guy. Like that's just like I love that idea. I've only used one. I just like saving the rest of them. That's my first purchase in a very long time. I don't buy a lot of bundles anymore at all. Maybe because I don't live stream that much, right? So like I feel like live streaming is like a fun thing to like add to it and look at the new art and everything. And Spotlight's lost a little bit of that allure to me because they're not epic enough. They're just not. They're not. They used to be, but I don't think they are anymore.
No, you're 100% right. And talking about epic, Joe Random wrote in with this absolute gamer situation. I just lost an 8-cuber because of an M'Baku created by Arishem, triggered after my Captain Marvel, triggering to win the game. I'm about done with this crap.
Is this a TED Talk?
I know. It's just so funny because like these types of interactions are like what we were talking about in the section about like, the new villains of Snap. It's like people are having these experiences that like honestly I think this is a hilarious experience.
It's hilarious.
Like,
I would
Marvel's,
laugh at that
like,
content-wise. I would laugh at that if that happened to me. Oh, for sure.
That's awesome. Like these
that.
types of like experiences you can't plan for. And I think that Arishem is providing that. And I think the more that Marvel Snap can do that, these out-of-the-box experiences that you can't really, expect or depend on, those, what are they called? There's a word for that in gaming.
I don't know, but what I'll say is to the guy that submitted it, we're not giving you a hard time. I would just say, just know, like, I think this is a nice little ease of heart. Like, you're not alone. Like, these things happen all the time. We lose all the time in crazy ways in real life and in the game.
Yeah. I'm struggling to remember what that's called. There's someone in the comment section will know. It's some sort of like emergent. It's emergent.
Okay.
Emergent gameplay.
Okay.
Gameplay that like it's not planned but rather spontaneous. And I think that's a lot of fun. But anyways, guys, Cozy and I will be the hosts of this week's Conquerors event. I can't explain to you how excited I am to be co-hosting with Cozy Snap right here. And friends, keep an eye out on the official Marvel Snap channels for announcements on like the roster, which is absolutely fire, and more and fun, exciting news.
Drop in the comments below how many times Alex will say Costco live on air.
That's going to do it for us today on the Snapchat. We really appreciate each and every one of you. We're having a lot of fun on the Snapchat. A fantastic mailbag segment. Thanks for all your questions. And if you have a chance, leave us a review on your podcast platform of choice. We sincerely appreciate you, and we'll see you on that next Snapchat episode.